Hey, brother, this is Steve Horseman with Good Guys to Great Men. How are you today? We're doing a team approach today to answering one of the most common questions we get from clients who are dealing with a wife who's in her own transformation. We're here with Coach Jeff Fallon, Coach Dandor, Coach Garrett Prettyman, and we're going to go around the room here and give you some inputs on this thing about the wife who is a self-help junkie. The wife who is a self-help junkie is doing all kinds of things to better herself, transform herself, to take care of herself. And guys in our community who have a chronic self-help junkie for a wife have a lot of complaints about what's going on. They don't understand it. They feel judged. They think maybe she's not doing it the way he's supposed to. Each of us is going to have a different view or different perspective to share with you on how to think, how to speak, and how to act if you have a self-help junkie wife who's just getting on your nerves. And so, with that, I want to introduce Coach Jeff Allen, who's got a perspective on this I really like. Why don't you go ahead first, Jeff?
Hey, thanks, Steve. Good to see you guys again. One thing I want you to understand about your wife who's in the self-help work, reading books, watching videos. She may say a lot of big words that she hasn't been using in the past. And what I want you to understand is that she's finding a new power within herself, a new part of herself, a new piece of her identity that either she's never been in touch with before, or she's felt like she had to suppress or chameleon herself to please everyone around her. And this is a new discovery for her. Often it feels like she's pushing away from you. She feels more powerful. She wants to do things on her own that she's never done before. She wants to feel like she's more independent, maybe, than she ever has before. And it feels like she's pushing away from you. But I want you to know this is really about her. That's not about you. This is about her finding a piece of her own self where she can tap into aliveness in her chest, in her heart, in her soul that she's felt shut down or maybe dead for a long time. So at the fundamental core of relationship is you have to feel like, and you have to understand that for her to feel caring and connected and to feel positive about you, you need to be on her side of this new discovery for her. You need to be on her side for discovering and finding out these new parts of herself that have been shut down in the shadow or closed off for so long and closed off for probably longer than she's ever known you. This has probably been there since way before she knew you. So be on her side. You don't need to be her cheerleader with pom poms in the corner, okay? But know that this is a good thing for her, no matter how it's coming out. Maybe it's coming out in an unskilled way and she's saying mean things potentially, but she needs to learn this for herself. And for her to care about you or desire to be around you, she needs to feel like you care about her and this new discovery that she's coming upon. Garrett, how about you?
Thanks, Jeff. That's an excellent perspective to maintain. Does she feel like she's on a, or does she feel like we're against her, or does she feel like we're for her? I wanted to bring in some of the mechanics of what we see happening when relationships get to this point where she seems to really be binging on the self-help. There's actually 5 stages that we usually see a woman go through before she gets to that point where she's serving you divorce papers. A lot of us guys were pretty oblivious to that very first stage. And that usually is she notices this relationship could be better. This isn't what I signed up for. And she starts to think, am I the problem? How could this be different? Do I need to give him more sex? Am I just not fulfilling my role as a wife correctly? She had an envisioned version of marriage that she thought she was signing up for on the wedding day, and it hasn't quite come to pass. So as she tries to improve herself, save the relationship, she many times will start doing some development, maybe go to some therapy, start changing who she is. The reason a lot of us men can mistake this first step is we thought up till now that she was the problem. We thought, oh, good, she's getting her stuff together, so that way this can be better. So we kind of kick back on the lazy river thinking, wow, she's finally starting to go to the gym. She's starting to go to therapy. I knew she had some issues. And here she's desperately trying to breathe life into a relationship that for her feels like it's failing. And to the degree that we might not reckon with yet, she's really seeing this as this isn't going to work unless it's different. And imagine there's bars of maturity in the relationship. And as she's starting to understand more how relationships work, she's starting to take more responsibility for who she's going to be. As she's maturing, there starts to become a gap. And when there's a gap in the maturity, it feels like disharmony. It's like plucking two strings on a guitar and noticing those are not the right notes. They don't sound correct together. It's like the feeling of scratching on a chalkboard where it's just like, this isn't right. And we experience this. Put us on a team of men where one guy's not pulling his weight. He's the one that's not harmonizing. Or maybe put us in a team of where we're trying to think up a new concept and one guy keeps being negative. He keeps seeing the glass is half empty. He's at a lower maturity when it comes to thinking creatively. It doesn't feel right having him in the team. So she has this feeling as she's growing that this gap is forming and she's not going to be able to sustain that for long lengths of time. She wants us to rise up with her. How is a woman going to try to get her husband to rise up with her? We have guys whose wives, actually, their wives have reached out on Facebook, YouTube before and said, how can I get my husband to be different? How can I help him see? She's starting to have insights. So my challenge for you is let's set aside for a moment the path she's on, the growth she's doing, how she thinks you should be different for things to be better. And are we on a path that we're happy with? Are we challenging ourselves? Are we self-improving? Are we growing in ways that we're comfortable with, excited about? And are we raising our own bar? A lot of guys have found that actually over time, he can pass her up in his maturity, where now he's the one that's not pulled into drama. He's the one that leads a conversation away from where it used to go. And now she feels the distance to be herself better even. So it's not a competition, but we want to reckon that this could be the first stage of her wanting a higher standard in the relationship. And we do need to make sure we're taking responsibility for who we want to be in that.
Dan, what do you have to say?
Well, following on from what Garrett said, I think we're always talking about values and standards and principles and all that sort of stuff, and this is a perfect situation to talk about that because, for example, I've worked with clients in the past where this is happening, and the wife is on a growth path, and what does that do? Well, she's motivated, she's driving forward, she's saying all these new words, asking new questions, maybe going out and doing different things than she has done before, changing, right? So she's changing. What does change do? Well, it's unpredictable, it's scary, it's unknown. And so it immediately triggers insecurity in a lot of us. So what does the guy do at that point? He's from a place of insecurity, he's starting to ask questions, or maybe he's shutting down, or he's backing off, or he's doing lots of different things which are not coming from a place of confidence, self-worth, self-confidence. And so he's coming across kind of urgent, kind of needy, or sometimes he's coming across as aloof or just angry and upset and critical. So what needs to happen in this situation is part of what we do with guys is to take you through a process of really defining who you are, really getting you to a point of being very secure in yourself. For example, one client I was working with, every night his wife would come home and she would want to have a 3-hour conversation with him. And in that 3-hour conversation, she needed him to speak in a certain way, to accept responsibility in a certain way, to have remorse in a certain way. And, literally, if the remorse wasn't tears streaming and snot bubbling out of his nose, then it wasn't good enough. And she didn't feel heard. She didn't feel understood. She didn't feel like she could actually accept any of the acknowledgement that he was making in terms of what had happened in the past. Now, there was stuff that had happened in the past, right? It's not saying that there isn't stuff that happens that causes disconnection and stuff like that in relationships. But in that example, he really needed to know, well, what am I willing to put into this? Is it good for our relationship if I sit there for 3 hours feeling insecure, making her feel insecure? And no, it wasn't. It was just spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. At some point or other, he had to get very clear and say, here's what I'm willing to do, right? I can give you half an hour of my time. I'll be 100% present, and I'll really show up for that half an hour. And then after that, that's I'm kind of done then. And we can do that again at another date and give her a time for another date, but have some standards for himself, know who he is, know what he's willing to give, be secure in that, be confident in that. That's what she needs. And then the other aspect of that, I think, is, you need to have an open mind. So yes, know yourself, know what your boundaries are, know what your standards are, but also have an open mind. Be willing to be challenged, to be willing to see things from a different perspective. Not that you're wrong, but just that there's other information here that if you can be open to, then you can find a path forward together.
Thanks, you guys. I'll go last. I want to talk to the guy who is like many of the guys who we have as private clients and men who are in the Good Guys to Great Men Roundtable private group, which we invite you to anytime you want to join us. These guys are already in a process of personal development. They're in a process of personal change or transformational work. And so when we can get a little full of ourselves, when we first start this process, we read a book or two, we have an insight, we have an epiphany, all of a sudden you can get a little ego about you that you think you know how to do self-help and she's not doing it right. She's not doing it the way I would do it. Well, newsflash, you're a dude, she's not. Dudes tend to do this stuff in a certain way. We tend to get in with all feet in, right? We're all in. We're reading, we're showing up, we're doing the work. And there's some kind of guy or dude honor for doing the work. The way the feminine does the work is going to feel different than you, and you may judge it. You may resent it. You may not even understand it. It may not make sense to you the way it's happening. We don't do self-help the way that a lot of women do. And I know a lot of women do self-help. It's a combination of yoga pants at the grocery store while you order a smoothie and a chai latte, and while you do some meditation and you walk in the park and you get a facial, and maybe you go get your hair done, and maybe you could take a seminar, listen to a podcast, maybe go get a massage, right? Self-help and self-care are one and the same for women. It should be the same for men too, but a lot of us aren't taking care of ourselves as much as we're trying to buckle down and get this work done. And what I want for you is to accept the feminine way of self-help. When you see what she's doing and who she's talking to, and she's spending time with her girlfriends, maybe more time at the beauty shop, maybe more time napping, maybe more time doing nothing but meditating and maybe reading and watching podcasts. It's different to the way you're doing it. And all I want you to do kind of gets back to what Jeff was saying. Be on her side. Know that she has a way of doing things. If you have an internal resentment or judgment that she isn't doing self help the way you think she ought to be, because maybe you're not seeing the results that you think you should be seeing as a result of her self help, which is funny because we think if other people do self help, we should benefit. Well, the whole definition of self help, it's not for you, it's for them. And so be aware of the masculine and feminine tendencies we have in doing self-help. Your, kill it mentality to self-help, read 10 books, go to 3 meetings, right? Get a coach, that kind of stuff. It's different. And I'd love for you to know that and to laugh about it and honor it, because as all of us will tell you, if she can feel that you honor her method of doing it and that you see the difference and you don't stand in judgment, and you just quietly appreciate. You don't smirk with arrogance or judgment. You smirk with underlying adoration and appreciation for the fact that she is doing her, just like you would do for your daughter. So that's what I want to say. I want you guys to all think about the self help process for yourself and for her, and to use it as a springboard, not as a competition. Thanks, you guys, for playing today. If you guys want to know more, go to the Good Guys to greatmen.com website and the link below this video. If you have comments, share them with us below. Have a great day.
See you guys.